Today, we're diving headfirst into the absurd, money-burning, and ghost-transporting world of the U.S. military-industrial complex. Now, let's uncover the dirty secrets behind the stage. Picture this. It's the 2025 defense budget hearing. Congressman Michael strolls in holding up a plastic bag of, wait for it, bushings. Not the kind of nuts that send you into the therapy, but actually metal bushings nuts.
With the FAA specifications, how much do you think the Air Force pays for this bag of bushings?
He asks, deadpan. The camera zooms in on the Secretary of the Air Force. Oh, no, not a bushing.
Caught off guard, Kendall stammers.
I don't know, Congressman.
Waltz smiles like a dad who caught his kids lying about homework.
$90,000.
For a bag of bushings.
This is a $90,000 bag of bushings that you need for any jet turbine engine.
Let me assure you, they're just metals. Plain, old, stamped out of a machine nuts. You could probably find them in your neighbor's garage, tucked behind a rusted lawnmower. Yet, the Department of Defense caught up 90 grand for them.
This is a $90,000 bag of bushings.
Meanwhile, you and I?
We could order the exact same bag online for about $100 and still get free shipping. This is how the military does business. It's not about what you need. It's about how much you can overpay to keep the whole corrupt machine humming.
Do you know what that means? Waltz asked, leaning in like he's about to drop the final punchline of this great comedy.
Secretary Kendall knows where this is going, but all he can do is shrug. His defense? The classic bureaucratic dodge. Blame the logistics department.
So I'm asking you.
Yeah, Defense Logistics Agency used to report to me.
We've been investigating, he mumbles.
And we had an issue when I was there with people gouging us, basically, charging us too much for parts.
No kidding, Frank. Waltz doesn't miss a beat. He cuts him off.
Well,
Right, you've got the Ferraris, but these are the pickup trucks, so we should just be able to buy them.
This is like buying a Ferrari to haul firewood. Well, you don't really need it, but hey, when the taxpayers are footing the bill, why not splurge? And there it is, folks, a 90,000 bag of bushings. Welcome to the United States military budget.
The military-industrial complex, where your tax dollars go to die. For those who aren't familiar, the U.S. defense budget is a bloated, runaway train that keeps picking up speed. In 2024, the Pentagon asked for a record-breaking $900 billion for 2025. That's billion with a B-I, folks. To give you an idea of how ridiculous this is, the U.S. military budget accounts for 40% of global military spending. The U.S. alone outspends the next 19 countries combined by 20%. Think about that. China could build another Great Wall out of tanks. Russia could arm every Siberian bear, and the U.S. would still outspend them both. But why? What on earth are we spending all this money on? Well, if you guessed more nuts and 1,200 coffee mugs, you're not far off. Let's rewind to where this all started, the military-industrial complex. It all began during World War II when the U.S. cranked up its war machine. Military leaders, defense contractors, and politicians realized they could make an absolute killing, literally and figuratively. On one side, defense contractors, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, made a fortune cranking out weapons. On the other side, politicians kept their pockets lined with fat donations from these same companies. It was a match made in hell, and the result? The military-industrial complex, an unstoppable money-printing machine disguised as national defense.
These days, these defense contractors don't just lobby, they flat out run Washington. Every year, before the defense budget gets passed, the top brass from Lockheed, Boeing, and Raytheon show up like it's prom night, suits pressed, briefcases full of cash, ready to charm Congress into writing them another blank check. It's the world's most expensive beauty pageant, and the Pentagon's the judge. Need more proof? Here we go. In 2021, the U.S. military spending was $801 billion. In 2022, it increased to $877 billion. By 2023, we will add over $900 billion military spending.
At this rate, by 2030, we'll be asking for $1 trillion just to keep the Pentagon stocked with overpriced toilet paper. But here's where it gets really fun. Even though World War II ended, the military-industrial complex had a problem. Without a constant demand for tanks, missiles, and those $90,000 nuts, how would they keep the gravy train rolling? The answer: permanent war. Every few years, the U.S. finds a new country to liberate or stabilize. Pick your euphemism. The result? The U.S. has been involved in dozens of wars since World War II, costing taxpayers $6.6 trillion.
The only real winner:
defense contractors. Let's talk Afghanistan. The U.S. spent 20 years and $2.3 trillion fighting the Taliban, a group whose entire economy is probably smaller than the U.S. military's bottled water budget. Over 180,000 troops were deployed.
Here's the fun part, guys.
American soldiers didn't drink a drop of local water. Nope. All water was airlifted from Europe.
Not just for drinking. No.
The troops washed dishes, brushed their teeth, probably bathed in water that had flown across the Atlantic. It's like a luxury cruise, but in a war zone.
And then, here comes the famous goat scandal. In 2019, the Pentagon spent $6 million, yes, $6 million, flying 9 Italian goats to Afghanistan. Why? To boost Afghanistan goat industry, of course. Because what's better than improving goat genetics during a war? But spoiler alert,
the goats were probably eaten. If they weren't, they're the most expensive mutton in history.
But wait, it gets worse.
The Pentagon also built a $45 million Schuster gas station that should have cost $350,000.
Here is a more visual bar chart comparison. The blue bar is what the taxpayers actually spent, $43 million. Whereas the tiny green bar is what it actually should have cost.
And the cherry on top? A $36 million villa, complete with a pool for American defense contractors to relax in. I guess it's hard to seal a weapons deal without a margarita in hand. And when it came time for America to leave Afghanistan, the U.S. left behind billions of dollars in brand new tanks, trucks, and guns.
Why? Because it was cheaper to abandon them than bring them back. Or maybe they just want to avoid auditors.
Who? Let's be honest. We're probably getting a little too curious about all that missing cash.
Speaking of audits, since 1990s, the Pentagon has failed every single audit. You hear me right. Every single audit. They failed. Over 30 years of accounting and not a single clear financial statement. But here's where it gets really interesting.
In 2020, President Trump, smelling the corruption, sent an auditing team to Afghanistan. Their plane mysteriously crashed. And that was the end of Pentagon audits.
The military industry complex doesn't mess around. If you try to check the receipts, there's a good chance you will be flying ghosts to Afghanistan next.
Even the auditors left behind had to admit it. Billions, no, trillions of dollars in Pentagon assets are just missing. They're either lost, destroyed, or sitting in some defense contractor's private villa right next to the Italian goat barbecue. But that's the reality of the military-industrial complex. They don't just build weapons. They build an entire ecosystem of corruption. Politicians get richer, contractors get fatter, and the rest of us, we get stuck footing the bill.
But here's the kicker. It's so deeply entrenched in American politics that no one can stop it. The military industry complex has grown into a Frankenstein monster. Forget about foreign enemies. America's greatest threat might just be the guy who's selling the 90 grand nuts in the Pentagon's lobby. Love you guys.